mighty OD.
Dead breeze, we rap this shit. Where they pull them weapons quick and snitches be the death of it. Do you hear them? Here they come. Liquors balling out the slums. Here to tell you where I'm from.
Mighty OD.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Brock Brown, the ODTV. We talking boxing again. I ain't been around because boxing is fucking depressing. Give me a second. Let me like my shit. I'm gonna talk to y'all. Boxing is depressing. Why is boxing depressing? Because in this era of boxing, boxers a lot of times don't dare to be great. They're either forced to be great or they luck into a situation where the opportunity can make them great. And what I mean by that is boxing is a place where unification and undisputed is rare. And I'm going to tell you because it's kind of sad. It's very sad. Excuse me. It's very sad because boxers shouldn't have picks like that. You know, boxers should not have picks in that way. Like, I understand you fight for money. And you'll always hear me say that about fighters. They fight for money. Because a lot of them are too scared to try and be great. Unification and undisputed are too rare in boxing. See, in football, basketball, baseball, every other sport, you get the playoffs. And you ultimately get the championship. Undisputed is the championship. Unification is the playoffs. So for all the fighters who have 25 to 35 fights, and I'm not even going to make it, like I said, I understand it. I see how it's run. I see how the business is. I just don't understand why if you have 30 fights, 35 fights, you've never been in a unification. I don't understand why if you're world champion, you've never been in you've never been world champion. Excuse me. You got 25, 35 fights and you've never been maybe not be world champion, but be in a world championship fight. And if you lose a world championship fight, then in my opinion, all bets should be off. You should be taking anything and everything that gets you another title shot. And it just seems like, to me, boxing does not want the big fights. Boxing wants you to pay $75 for playoffs. They don't want you to pay $75 or $100 for the championship. They want you to pay $75, $80, $100 for the playoffs. That's what boxing wants. And it's sad. It sickens me. It truly sickens me, man. It makes me sick to my stomach. And I'm saying all this to say, Earl Spence asking Terrence Crawford, why is he here? Earl Spence, when they ask him who he's going to fight next, this is the point I was making before Earl Spence even fought Danny Garcia. Okay, I see what you're doing with Danny Garcia. I see what you're doing. You're putting him through all your PBC fighters. But at the same time, Danny Garcia didn't have anything, yo. I don't give a fuck about that humanitarian bullshit Mauricio Suleiman pulled at the last second. Danny Garcia had nothing. Not only did he have nothing, he lost to other PBC fighters. He lost to Sean Porter. Keith Thurman whooped his ass. Listen, at the end of the day, y'all have to understand, all this is a calculated move. There's a reason why Earl Spence didn't name his next fighter, because Al ain't figured that out yet. There's nowhere for Earl to go. The only two places for Earl to truly go and say, I'm going up. Listen to what I'm saying. Earl can stay in the same spot and fight one of the ghosts of the past. Earl can backtrack and fight somebody who is a lesser fighter than those ghosts of the past. Or Earl can go forward. And there's only two roads forward. You got to understand, one road has to allow admission. One road has to allow admission. Now, Manny Pacquiao, okay, he's road A, but you need admission. You have to be permitted to travel that road. Manny Pacquiao has to greenlight it. He has to say yes. He picks who he fights. Let's move forward. Terrence Crawford has a belt. So him not saying Manny Pacquiao and Terrence Crawford off bat, even if it was a lie, is even worse to me. He could have said Manny Pacquiao or Terrence Crawford. But you know what stopped him from saying Terrence Crawford? What stopped him from saying Terrence Crawford was the fact that Terrence Crawford was there. Earl Spence made sure in his hometown that he did not open up a can of worms like he did the day they had that conversation out back. Because that is the infamous video that has painted Earl Spence in an unfavorable light when it comes to who's ducking who. That video is Exhibit A. Earl talked a good game and told him to call Al. Bob Arum says Al Heyman's not going to allow that fight. Bob Heyman has publicly tried to use the Floyd Mayweather method, the method that everybody uses with Floyd Mayweather. Oh, you don't want to fight us. You don't want to fight us, Floyd. You don't want to fight us, Floyd. He's used that on Al Heyman. You've heard nothing from Earl Spence. You've heard nothing from Al Heyman. You've heard nothing from Derrick James. The problem with that is that Terrence Crawford has a belt. We're not asking you to fight Terrence Crawford because he's Terrence Crawford. We're not asking you to fight Terrence Crawford because he was undisputed in another division. We're saying that the pieces of the puzzle are out there and you seem to have no interest in them. A la Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua. Oh, being undisputed ain't my legacy. My legacy is going 51-0. At the time, that would have been one better than Floyd Mayweather. So again, I'm sorry to say, and it's sad because they don't give Floyd his credit. And what do I mean by they don't give Floyd his credit? None of these fighters today give Floyd his credit. Floyd fought monsters. Then Floyd hurt his hands. Floyd fought monsters. Then Floyd hurt his hands. Then after he hurt his hands, he fought an occasional monster and he cherry-picked in between because he had already established himself as Floyd Mayweather or the Money Mayweather or the biggest grossing fighter in boxing. He had already done enough work and garnered enough fandom / hate to be the most iconic boxer of his time. That is what Floyd did. Has Earl Spence done that? Did Deontay Wilder do that? You see, the problem, this is why we got Luis Ortiz, Deontay Wilder Part 2. This is why that fight took place, y'all. Nobody wanted to see it, right? But this is why you got it. Because Wilder, Joshua was not going to happen. And due to Fury's contract, Fury had to go do XYZ. He had to go, he chose to or had to go fight intermediate people. And Deontay Wilder had to keep busy while he did that. Therefore, you have a Luis Ortiz Part 2. So don't be surprised if you hear Earl Spence is fighting Sean Porter again. Earl Spence is fighting Danny Garcia. Earl Spence is fighting... The one surprise would be Keith Thurman because I truly believe Keith Thurman doesn't want that fight. I'm going to call Keith Thurman neutral. And what I mean by neutral is I said you could go backwards, you can stay where you are, or you go forward. Neutral would be staying where you are. And the reason why Keith Thurman is staying where you are, even though Keith Thurman is a great name to have under your belt, is because you didn't fight Keith Thurman when he had the title. You and Keith Thurman are not unifying. A unification, to my knowledge, trumps a mandatory. A unification, even if it doesn't truly trump a mandatory in the eyes of the sanctioning body, it doesn't matter to me. It's still bigger. We all know that. 2 belts is bigger than 1 belt. You can sit there and try to make the name of Keith Thurman's pay-per-view numbers and them being better than Bud Crawford's and all that shit that the guys who get the interviews, the guys who talk to Bob Arum, the guys who talk to Deontay Wilder, those guys will tell you that bullshit. They will make it about the pay-per-view numbers because they're showing loyalty or fealty to the people who blow their channels up. And that's the honest to God truth. Like, I just don't know why boxing has to be the one sport like this. Everybody want to follow Floyd's blueprint. Nobody want to put in the work that Floyd put in. Everybody is like, oh, I'm not playing checkers, I'm playing chess. But the ultimate objective of the game of chess is to win. Winning in these fighters' eyes is comparing themselves to their counterparts and saying, I'm ahead of you in levels A, C, X, and Z. And the other guy says, well, I'm ahead of you in B, D, F, R, Q. Look how many more I got than you. And it's a dick measuring contest. But face to face. All this, oh, this person don't come to my fights. This person don't come to my fights. What did Charlo tell nigga? Come to his fight, right? He tell motherfucker come to the Earl Spence fight, right? I'm just saying, they talked about Tyson Fury saying AJ don't come to his fight. I mean, right? Or something like that. Why would he come to AJ fight? Deontay Wilder, you don't come to my fights. Why would I come to your fight? Even though he came to one of AJ fights, he was paid to be there. So I'm just saying, y'all, why does boxing have to be like this? Football players, basketball players, baseball players, they shake hands at the end. Boxers tap gloves at the end. Some come over. The winner usually goes over there and make sure the loser is all right. I ain't gonna say usually, but it happens. It's more than a random occurrence. It happens quite often in boxing. We all know that. But what I'm saying is, how come these guys can sit there at a press conference and they can talk? How come these guys can be in the same arena during a fight? How come these guys can say each other's names out in the streets, but when a motherfucker show up to your fight, it's why are you here? Nigga, you know why I'm here. You know why I'm here. Because I want to fight you. With Manny Pacquiao, both of them have to be given the green light to go down that road. Both of them have to be. So there's no, oh, Manny picks who Manny wants to pick. Manny can say that he would like to fight both of y'all. There could be a rumor about him fighting Terrence Crawford next, and he could come out publicly and say, oh, I would like to fight Errol Spence. And neither of them could get the fight next because Manny holds all the cards. Manny is the highest payday that you can get at 147, period. There is no exceptions to that rule. Nobody has come close yet to getting you the type of bag. This is why everybody begs Manny for the fight. All the guys at 147, they all want to fight Manny. They all want to fight Manny. Now, again, Manny Pacquiao, we're going to see what he does as well. Is he going to stay neutral? Is he going to go backwards? Or is he going to go forward? Fighting Danny Garcia, fighting Mikey Garcia, after you just fought Keith Thurman, to me, that's going backwards. But then you got those guys who get the interviews, what they going to say? What? Mikey Garcia, Earl Spence pay-per-view numbers is this. Now they're going to make it about pay-per-view. They're going to keep moving the goalposts. They're going to keep moving the goalposts because it benefits them. The promoters, I want to know what the fuck is their benefit. To get a bunch of small bags leading up to a big bag? But if you were known for putting on big bag fights over and over and over, wouldn't you just see big bags? I feel like there's always a unification fight that can happen. Now, Sean Porter is Terrence Crawford's mandatory. Now, so when Dillian White was Deontay Wilder's mandatory, how come that fight never happened? How come Sean Porter just became this man's mandatory, and now it's let's rush Sean Porter to fight Terrence Crawford? Y'all got to understand me, please. Y'all have to understand me. I want to see Sean Porter fight Terrence Crawford too. But not at the expense of missing Terrence Crawford fight Earl Spence. We got to stop accepting these secondary fucking fights. People who already lost their title, people who are not in the fucking driver's seat, and they keep giving these guys opportunities. Now y'all want to talk about enforcing mandatories. For all you PBC loving motherfuckers, now y'all want to talk about enforcing mandatories. Now, it's funny how you want to enforce the mandatory on Terrence Crawford. It's funny how you want to enforce the mandatory on Anthony Joshua. It's funny how you want to, and you want me. Let me backtrack. And you know what's fucked up? You know what's fucked up? The most fucked up thing? Another lie that these channels tell y'all, that it's about being American. I'm going to prove to y'all right now it's not. Bud Crawford is black and he's American. Bud Crawford is black and he is American. So let's look at these weird, strange, change ass niggas mentality. Let's look at their mentality. Errol Spence is black and he's American. Bud Crawford is black and he's American. But Bud Crawford is not promoted by a black American. Therefore, Errol Spence is more black, more American, and he's PBC. So we rock with him over Bud Crawford. We treat Bud Crawford like he from the UK. We treat Bud Crawford like he from Australia, like he from New Zealand or something. That's really how y'all do Bud Crawford. It's a goddamn shame, man. It's a shame that Al Heyman, being a black man with money, got y'all sniffing his ass so hard that Bud Crawford can't get his proper respect. And then you got these poop butt channels. Poop butt. Because you always got to switch the narrative. You always got to sell bullshit. Why? Do you niggas make that much money that you have to tap dance? Keep it real with me. Do y'all make that much money that you have to tap dance? There's dudes out there who don't report certain news because it paints their fighters in a bad light. It's terrible, man. I don't report the news. I talk about what I feel like talking about. And lately I haven't felt like talking. Lately I have not felt like talking because boxing is fucking depressing. Boxing is sad. That when every fighter you fight is a man challenging your manhood. Every fighter you fight is a man challenging your manhood. But what happens when it's more than that? What happens when it's a man challenging your manhood? What happens when there's money involved? What happens when it's bigger than that? What happens when it's big money involved? What happens when it's bigger than that? When there's a title on the line? What's bigger than that? 2 titles on the line. What's bigger than that? All the titles on the line. So what I want y'all to realize is if we keep accepting and paying for, I ain't saying we ain't got to watch it. I ain't saying we ain't got to like the fight, but we need to stop paying for the number 2 contender and the number 3 contender and the number 5 contender, and oh, you can pick anybody in the top 10. Well, it's the heavyweight division, so you can pick anybody in the top 15. We need to stop paying for that. Because what they do is they build up people's names. And the actual risk that the fighters is taking is far higher than the company, especially when both fighters work for the same company. I think that the promoter should have to risk, at least what the fighters are risking. Losing your title. Sometimes losing your O, having your pride scratch, a man being better than you on that night when he challenged you for your manhood. He challenged your manhood, and he was the better man that night. How can that make you feel? The promoters and the company should have to have as much on the line, at least. They should at least have to have as much on the line. And it sickens me. It sickens me. Boxing straight sickens me that we have to go through years and years of contenders, some who don't even never get their shot. We have to go through years and years of the back and forth, the pissing contest, the dick measuring contest, the subliminals, the Twitter fingers. We got to go through all that to build up a fight. And then due to circumstances of what the fighters falling short that night or whatever, we got to miss those fights. The perfect time is always now. If you can talk about it, it can happen. But it would take fighters to take their own careers into their own control. That's what they would have to do, take control of their own careers. That's what fighters would have to do. And say, now I'm fighting this person next. But then you got guys like Wilder who wouldn't sit down with AJ, who wouldn't even talk to him. AJ couldn't be in the room. You got guys like Errol Spence who asked Terrence Crawford, why are you here? While everybody's sitting around waiting for Pacquiao to bless him. Sucks, man. It sucks. I can show it to you in a bunch of different divisions. Teofimo, you just fought Lomachenko, you shocked the world, right? Where are you going to go from here? Well, there's only one place you can go that's truly up. To go get the belt that you don't have. That's the only place you could go that's truly up. But what did Teofimo Lopez do? And right now, I'm saying is Teofimo Lopez he has now moved into the top 3 guys that I like. He's like Canelo. I don't like the way Canelo's moving. And it's like somewhat of a tie in my top 3 for Canelo and Teofimo at that 3rd spot. But I'm rocking with Teofimo right now. Because Teofimo still can do the right thing. Teofimo can still be great. Who you going to fight next? Tank Davis not going to fight you. Ryan Garcia not going to fight you. You beat Lomachenko. Who you going to fight next? Come on, man. Are you really going to call the franchise champion? Are you going to call that undisputed? Because that's what you've been doing. You've been saying he's a mail-in champion, but the man vacated. It don't matter. You can call him whatever you want. I'm with you, Teofimo. You can call him whatever you want as long as you get in the ring and take what he got. You can say whatever you want to say to Devin Haney as long as you get in the ring and take what he got. Errol Spence ain't had nothing to say, but why are you here? And you got people out here who got all these people in boxing who might not know as much as them, who might not pay attention as closely as them. And irregardless, even if they do, that person that they listen to is still the person who is choosing to report it. And what are they doing? Oh, he sunned Terrence Crawford. He schooled Terrence Crawford. He played Terrence Crawford. No, he didn't. He bitched out in his face. He bitched out in front of the world. He copped the fucking plea. He didn't want that man in the ring. He didn't want to talk to that man. You know why? Because a long time ago, Al Heyman been explained to Errol Spence, we'll get to Terrence Crawford when the time comes. And not before I say so. You have to understand, Terrence Crawford is Errol Spence's biggest competition in that division. It's the same thing with Wilder and Joshua. Fury is great. Fury is a great boxer. Fury is a great heavyweight. Fury is a 2-time champion. But I'm still waiting for Tyson Fury to defend his title. That's neither here nor there. That's not my point. My point is that Joshua is the biggest threat. Because before that second fight, he didn't believe Fury had enough power to hurt him. He didn't believe that. But he knows Joshua does. He knows his technical skills are less than of Joshua's. So when you got 2 power punchers, and I don't know who can take a better punch because both of them got stopped by getting hit in their temple. I'm going to be fair about it. Both of them were stopped. And when I say stopped, I don't mean that's the moment the fight ended. I mean that's the moment they were out of the fight. When both guys got hit in the temple, it was over for them. It was over for them. Joshua made a valiant effort to stay up for rounds after he took that shot, but he never recovered. Same as Deontay Wilder. My point is, Joshua is the biggest weapon in Wilder, and Team Wilder, and Team PBC's eyes. He was always the one that could, in a potential fight, present the most problems for Deontay. So they stayed away from it, even when $100 million was on the table. Now, I don't know how much Bud Crawford and them want to fight for with Errol Spence. But again, in true PBC, Wilder AJ fashion, Errol Spence made a ridiculous demand as soon as people started talking about the fight again. 60-40 or no fight. Well, that's the equivalent of Deontay Wilder telling Anthony Joshua 50-50 or no fight when he didn't deserve it. 60-40 or no fight, Bud Crawford easily says, well, then the fight ain't going to happen. See, Errol Spence is misleading y'all. He does make more money than Bud Crawford, but it's not that noticeable. It's not as noticeable as he's making it seem. His highest payday is very noticeable compared to Bud's highest payday, but that's not where Earl get paid on the average. Don't let Errol Spence spin y'all. The money is public record. The money is out there. There's all types of rumors. There's all types of sites that you can go to, and you can see how much money Errol Spence has gotten per fight, just like Deontay Wilder per fight. You can see how much these guys are getting. So Errol Spence is using money. The fact that his pay-per-view numbers are better, not astronomically better, but noticeably better. His best pay-per-view, because he hasn't had many, his best pay-per-view is better than Bud's best pay-per-view noticeably. He's using those things, the optics of who Errol Spence is or what Errol Spence is, to claim he's bigger than Bud Crawford to avoid him. Because if you're bigger than him, it doesn't matter. It's a unification fight, y'all. It's a unification fight. He's not Manny Pacquiao. 40% of his 100% is not amazing money. Who knows how much money the promoters are going to put behind that fight after the L they took with Wilder and Fury? 2. So what I'm saying to y'all is this, man. This is what I'm saying to y'all. But before I get in that, y'all see how much money they did invest in Wilder Fury 2 after they had minimal success with the first one, right? Now look at the pay-per-view numbers from the first one to the second one. All that money they put out there, and I think they might have doubled or barely doubled. They barely doubled or they just missed doubling. I forgot the original number. But the pay-per-view numbers either doubled or they barely doubled. But look how much money they had to put in for it to just barely double. Look at how much bread they had to put into it. That's why they took a L. That's why they didn't break even. See, because boxing, like Mike Tyson said, was in the doldrums. But it's in the doldrums here in America because everybody want to be Floyd Mayweather. You need to follow Clarissa Shields' blueprint. You need to follow Lomachenko's blueprint. You need to follow Teofimo Lopez's blueprint. You need to follow Anthony Joshua's blueprint. Go after it. Be great. And I believe in the long run, you'll make more money. I truly do. Now, you might take a loss, but stop trying to sell the O. Stop trying to chase Floyd Mayweather. Create your own legacy, please. Errol Spence, you need to fight Bud Crawford, man. You need to fight Bud Crawford. There's only a couple routes that's truly up. Keith Thurman is neutral. If you backtrack and you fight Danny Garcia or what's the name you're going, or Sean Porter, you're going backwards. I understand Sean Porter is Bud Crawford's mandatory. That's my guy. I like Sean Porter. I fuck with Sean Porter when he played football. You got to understand this. When he played for the Jaguars, I banged with Sean Porter then. Sean Porter fight like he played football. He is a dog. But don't ask me to pay $75 to watch Sean Porter fight Bud Crawford when there's a unification on the table. And Earl just said he don't know where he going, right? So how come Bud Crawford is not an option? Because boxing is fucking depressing, man. That's why it's not an option. Because boxing is fucking depressing. You all want to be one guy. And you avoid each other to try to maintain the appearance that you're on the road to being that man. You must understand this, all fighters. Floyd Mayweather fought monsters before he started cherry picking. And then in between his cherry picks, he fought monsters. Don't be backed into fighting Manny Pacquiao. Don't be backed into fighting Canelo Alvarez. Don't be backed into fighting Oscar De La Hoya. Fight them now. If you have a unification, and this goes for every division in boxing, if you have a unification on the table, take the unification. Take the unification. Oh, we gonna fight? We gonna fight? We gonna fight? Stop telling fans to wait. You're not a fucking promoter. You're not a manager. Stop telling fans to wait. Either give them what they want or move the fuck out the way and don't say shit. So it's only X amount of people here. at Earl Spence fight that paid money to see him. Terrence Crawford was one of the people that paid money to see you, nigga, who probably brought other people where he paid his money to see you, nigga. And why is he here? Man, fuck the PBC. Fuck Al Heyman and his corny ass games. Fuck Al Heyman. Fuck the PBC. Earl Spence don't want to unify. Fuck Earl Spence. If Teofimo Lopez don't want to unify, fuck Teofimo Lopez. If Canelo Alvarez don't want to unify, fuck Canelo Alvarez. What don't y'all get about this? I'm going to call it the same all the way around the board. If you don't want to unify, fuck you. You're a less of a champion. You shouldn't even have your title. I'm not going to sit here and tell y'all, oh, well, this person makes this much money. This person is a pay-per-view star. I don't care about none of that. I can't spend their money. These motherfuckers asking us for our money. They asking us for our money, for their careers, for their pockets, for their mansions, for their cars, for their lifestyles. And we going to give it to them for secondary and sometimes third tier fights. That's what we going to do. We going to let people build up an undercard and force the people on the undercard to fight better competition than the guy at the top. Same premise. Joshua fight Pulev, right? They say he fights Fury if Fury beats Wilder. Respect. Both of y'all know each other's situation. Only thing can stop it is a loss. Now, if both of y'all win and it don't happen for some reason, then it's going to be fuck somebody in that situation. Somebody's going to eat the blame for that. At least in my eyes. In my court of public opinion. Somebody will eat that. I'm going to say fuck one of them for that happening. Once we find out who is the determining factor in why it didn't happen. But that's all I want, y'all. All I want is unifications. Teofimo, if you can call him a mail-in champion, if you can call him a paper champion, then you should be able to get in the ring, whoop his ass, and take what's happening. If y'all two fight, I'm picking Teofimo. I'm betting my money on Teofimo. But that's not the point. The point is, Devin talk a good game, you talk a good game. The only piece you truly do not have is the WBC title because Lomachenko, he vacated, he didn't fight Devin Haney, and they gave the #1 contender the belt as the sanctioning body guidelines say they will do if the champion is not champion for whatever reason. He gets sick, failure to perform, he get hurt, whatever. It goes to the #1 guy. Cool. My problem is that Teofimo Lopez now has two roads he can walk. You can either say, okay, I'm going to go get that strap from Devin Haney, or I'm going to sit here and perpetrate a fraud like this WBC franchise champion is the real WBC belt. We can do one of two things, but what you do is how you will be judged. I'm not even talking about Tank Davis because Tank Davis ain't even allowed to speak for himself. This is my problem with boxing, y'all. This is my problem with boxing. This is why I stopped watching boxing years ago when the Klitschko was running shit and the heavyweight division was boring as fuck. Then Tyson Fury, I watched him win the championship, then the motherfucker was MIA. For years. And that whole time, I ain't really been back to boxing. I caught a couple fights here and there, but I ain't really been back to boxing. Now Floyd Mayweather gonna fight Logan Paul. This stuff ain't gonna make boxing better. Mike Tyson, Roy Jones makes boxing better because it shows these nut ass niggas that people will still spend their money on shit. Like I told y'all, Mike is the first pay-per-view star. Floyd took it to a new level, correct. But Mike is the first pay-per-view star. Everything Mike do, they gonna show up for. Everything Mike do, they gonna show up for. Everything Floyd do, they gonna show up for. Listen, from Anthony Joshua on down, Joshua and Canelo and Manny Pacquiao might be the three closest examples to Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather as far as getting money in the boxing game. What I want you boxers to understand, y'all don't make as much money as those three guys, Canelo, AJ, and Pacquiao. So how the fuck are y'all going to skip all three of them and try to move like Floyd Mayweather? I don't get it, man. I don't get it, man. Like I said, I don't get it. So be prepared for Floyd to fight Logan Paul, and then after that, probably fight Jake Paul. But like I said, man, I'm sorry, man. Boxing is terrible. Boxing is depressing. Boxing is bullshit. And yeah, they do put on good fights every now and then. But a good fight is a good fight. A great fight is a great fight. A potentially good fight is a potentially good fight. So until they get in a ring, it's potentially good. Because the two names carry a certain amount of cachet. What if somebody get knocked out in the first 5 seconds? What if somebody go down in the first, just a freak accident where somebody gets stopped in 2 rounds? Was it a good fight then? Or did the other person not show up? Was Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce a good fight? I thought so. But some people don't feel as though because Daniel Dubois quit. I lost money on Daniel Dubois. Nothing major, something small. But I lost a little couple dollars on Daniel Dubois. I forgot a bet I had, but I did make a bet online. It's something small, like $10. But it doesn't matter. The point is this. Boxing is only great when great fighters achieve great things. If great fighters don't achieve great things, then boxing can only be good. If good fighters don't strive to be great, boxing might not even be good. In the course of a year, how many fighters, how many fights are put on that are hogwash? How many? We accept that because at the end of every card, especially when you're asking for money, it should be a spectacular fight. I don't even want that. You boxing fans might want that. I don't want that. Anytime you ask me for money, at the end of that card, it should be a unification or better. You hear me? Every time you ask me for $75, $100, it should be a unification or better. Now, even if that fight don't last long, the potential implications of that fight is why fans should not feel slighted. Because that fight, on the surface level, before you even get in there with the two fighters, on the surface level, it was for something. It was not just a test of two skilled fighters challenging each other manhood. That was not what it was. There was something on the line, something more than the money that the fans can never spend. The fans now get something in return. We get a step closer to a puzzle that used to be just 4 pieces that these boxing companies have turned into a fucking jigsaw, man. I'm done with it. I'm done. Like the next video I make will probably be about the AJ Pulev thing, but I'm done talking about this. It's irking. I just don't understand. If you're a casual person and boxing doesn't matter. I like sports. I bet money on sports. I love sports. And when I get vested in fighters, and when like Keith Thurman broke my heart. I thought, well, don't duck me, Floyd, but Keith Thurman was trying to cash out. Keith Thurman didn't want to be undisputed. Keith Thurman just wanted to cash out. And he thought those belts, just like Tyson Fury did, he thought that those belts would get him a shot at a Floyd bag. He got the next best thing. He got a Pacquiao bag. That's the next best thing to a Floyd bag, even though they're nowhere near each other. But he got the next best thing. And like I said, I can't spend that money with Keith. I can't enjoy that with Keith. And I don't really consider that a unification. No drug testing. From what I was told, from what I read, no drug testing. Same title. One is the regular, one is the super. So is it really a unification? But listen, man, Errol Spence needs to fight Terrence Crawford. Period. Errol Spence needs to fight Terrence Crawford. Period. If you ain't fighting Pacquiao, you need to be fighting Crawford. That's all I really got to say about it, man. Boxing is depressing because the fighters don't move correctly. Brock Brown, the ODTV. Take care of yourself. Peace.